Right, so we come on to the part 2 of this As Above, So Below video, and a thank you and a shout out to Silas Speaks channel for bringing this to my attention with a community post about these hidden chambers under the Khafre Pyramid. And also thank you Steve, who sent a different video also discussing this same topic. So as I discussed in the last video, whether you take the spring equinox or the fall equinox, which you could say is the fool's journey, as being the start of the year, you're going to get the same experience or the same experiences, but the ordering will be different. You'll either have the summer first or you'll have the winter first, and then you'll have the contrast being shown to you. Now, whichever way you go with that, in the linear sense, things are still moving in the same direction, which ties in to this whole topic about these, what they called, these SARS readings of this pyramid and speculation of whether there are chambers below that. Now, what I find very interesting, and this sort of came into my mind, it took some finding to find the right videos, to find the locations, and they are the Kailasa Temple in India and the Rani Mi Vav well temple in India. I'll put a link in the description to a video that shows a model of where it's said that it's carved out of solid rock and goes downward. Now, if you were to invert a pyramid so it's on its point, it wouldn't be very stable. It would be very difficult to try and balance it. You'll see this reflected in tables that just have a single column, but the legs then splay out to give the balance. But whereas with a pyramid that is above ground, and it is formed by creating a solid structure, and within it are hidden chambers and passageways, if you take the inverse of that, like with these two Indian sites, one of them is called a well temple, it's completely inverse. But now what would be like the solid of the pyramid is actually open spaces, but now those passageways or these walkways and any little chambers and things are clear for everybody to see. So the question that arises to me from this, with these Indian temples and any other similar structures, if there are any that have actually gone below ground, has there been the same scrutiny looking at the measurements of the angles, the number of steps, the distances, and so on and so on? Is there any codes that reflect what is shown in the Great Pyramid of Giza by Archaic's channel, for example, that shows that it is a timeline with the Khufu Pyramid? I do find it interesting that how many decades has there been a fascination with what is called ancient Egypt and the pyramids, and why is it even today there is so little known about this second pyramid, what's inside it, what's below anything in that Giza complex, or anything that is known and made public, shall we say. But the one thing that both of these structures have in common, whether it's going down below the earth and the structure, as it were, is made by the solid surroundings, as opposed to a pyramid which has nothing around it above ground. Hopefully that makes sense. But whereas the pyramid has hidden chambers, empty spaces and such like, and walkways, the well temples actually have everything on display. But in both cases, they are up the same way. You're still with your feet in contact with the lower part of that walkway, regardless of whether it's a pyramid or a well temple. In the same way, if you were to take the spring or fall equinox as a start, it's still going in the same direction in the linear sense. But I wonder, what is actually below the pyramids? Is there an inverse pyramid, for example, that would form like a diamond? Has the well temple below that got a pyramid that goes down even further, forming like an X shape? Where are we? What also comes out of this is reflected in, why is there such a fascination with what's up there? And almost its complete opposite, with no curiosity is what is down there. So is this reflected in any measurements that have been taken of these well temples and below ground structures? Also, you'll find most of these religious structures always seem to be near water. Now, I've suggested, and I stick with this, that the Great Pyramid of Giza is an architectural representation of human physiology. We have chambers in the heart, for example, that you can't see on the outside. You have a flow with the blood going around the physical body. So it has a direct comparison with the architecture from that point of view. As I've mentioned a few videos ago, the pyramid has 4 points at the base, which would go with our 4 senses. Taste is an extension of touch, so you can't really count that one as a sense in its own right. So we're actually in 4 senses. But then there's the high point of the pyramid. But what about the well temples and the inverse of that? What are they conveying to us? Are there mathematical things that can be found from the measurements that will reveal something? I'm certainly no expert on any of these things. I'm just speculating by comparison, going with the idea of to know nothing is to know everything, because I'm seeing by comparison of one thing against another, which is what we do in everything in this reality. We know cold because we know hot. We know hot because we know cold. We can say, well, you know what I mean. We can find one, and then we can find its counterpart, contrast, in this reality. Interesting when we also come on to looking at the linear aspect. You have 2 mathematical symbols, greater than and lesser than, which, if you put them together, will also form an X or like a diamond shape. So I've done a little schematic. I don't know how well it's going to show up. So this top bit, if you take that as the Great Pyramid that's in black, and then that will be a representation of a well temple. So you've got this line here, the sort of surface. But what if there is a second surface, and then from a well temple you also have another sort of pyramid structure below that? You're going to get one of these 2 symbols come out of it. and there's the lesser than and greater than symbol. But going by the sort of cartoon schematics of what has been shown, what if you actually have something that's more akin to this? That's the sort of bottom illustration there. Sorry for the camera shake. So you've got a pyramid on top, then you've got a sort of like a rectangular section in the middle, and then there's a reverse, maybe a focal point that goes down into the earth. But doesn't that look like a naturally sort of formed sort of quartz crystal shape as well? I don't know, I'm just speculating by comparison in this video. And then what does this say to me about my internal structure? How much do we know about what is deep inside us? Because we're certainly encouraged, there are things that grab our attention. But what if it's attend Sion, which is the Mount Sion basically is the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's the spiritual eye on that is being shown. But I would suggest there are counterparts to these things. But like all these ancient sites, they are protected and you can't do independent evaluation. So I don't know what information there is out there. So I'm inviting you, if you feel inclined, to just take this a step further. See if you can find out measurements and things. I did look into those two Indian temples to see if they were on specific parallels, like the Great Pyramid of Giza. One of them, I seem to remember, was 22 degrees by 70 or something, and the other one is similar numbers. I cannot remember off the top of my head, but maybe it's, well, who came up with this grid system in the first place that divided these things up into these lines? Can we really trust that, or do we just go with intuition? What do we really know about what is below our feet, for example? Where is the evidence of these cartoon depictions of this magnetic core? Because all the schematics and things show that the actual penetration below ground is absolutely minimal compared to the sort of artist's renditions of this magnetic core at the middle. So who really knows? I'm not sort of asking for a definitive answer, because can we even find that? But certainly there are valuable lessons in looking at these things when we internalize these things, and the one thing we can find is the know ourselves, or at least to a far greater degree. So it comes back to consider that process when you see those numbers. That what is it that grabs your attention? Because it's, if you go in too deep into this with a why is this happening, why do I keep seeing these numbers, it becomes a rabbit hole, and it does become an anchor. But if you can just observe these things and then see them as spiritual prompts, then you can also go further as to, well, what was I talking about at the time? What was I thinking about at the time? Because I feel that does come into it. It comes back to that question of, are there such things as coincidences? I did a playlist on this with about 4 videos, which you can find on the channel. And it is quite correct, the definition of when several things happen. There seems to be no apparent connection, and that is the key part. It's something that's coming from the unseen. But if you'll know exactly what I mean if you get those number sequences and something prompts you to sort of notice it and log it in the mind, as it were, and it's like, oh, there's those numbers again. But of course, it's about staying in the balance and not going too deep into it, certainly not worrying about it, but just developing a greater understanding of the whole experience, shall we say. So hopefully that has been thought-provoking for you, and I invite anybody who has a real sort of fascination with these topics to actually do a bit of digging, see if you can find if there are measurements to these well temples and such like, and see if there's anything revealed from what is below the surface rather than what is above the surface. As to the Khafre Pyramid, I remain open-minded about it all. I don't form an opinion one way or the other. What I will say is it's definitely not a tomb of a pharaoh, and it is definitely not built by some supernatural ancient aliens either. That has been conclusively shown from our Archaic's channel, and there are other channels as well. Niven channel that I'm going to suggest here that has looked at different aspects, looked at the harmonics and things, because it is far more than what it appears to be. It's far more than just hidden chambers and hidden secrets. There's the whole idea of the frequencies that come into this as well, and that leads us into music and art. There is certainly an art in architecture. Some are aesthetically pleasing, or you may find certain things aesthetically pleasing, and other things you may say, well, that's a bit plain, that could have been done better. But it is what it is at the end of the day. It's finding that balance, and the only place you'll find that is by asking those questions that answers the question many people say, what do you mean I've got all the answers inside me? It is by asking yourself the questions of why are these things coming up? Why has this got my attention? And so on and so on. And I feel that also answers why I was alerted to these alleged hidden chambers below this Khafre Pyramid, because it ties in what I was already talking about and expands on what I was able to say. Hence you've got a part 2 video. So that just leaves me to say, if you like my way of thinking, if you feel it can help you in any way, then I invite you to email me direct. You may like to try one of the courses where we can go into such things, and I can give you a new way of seeing things, a new way of hearing things, a new way of contemplating things that will be of a benefit to you. I'm not going to tell you something is or it isn't. It's more, well, have you considered it this way? Have you considered it that way? That is reflected as much as anywhere else in that Bible story where this Jesus figure is questioned, and some say you're this, some say you're that, and his reply is, well, who do you say that I am? Now you can even read into that, who do you say that I am? Referring to the other person and referring to them as I am without them even realizing it. That is what is being said. So we'll leave that there, and is there anything else I wish to say on this video? We've covered the courses. I've developed this new Pyramid Tarot, if you'd like a personal one-to-one reading. It may even, it's sort of crossed my mind, what if I do an inverted pyramid on that reading, and then we'd go to, what, 10, 13, we'd go to 17 cards if I had one baseline of 4, and then a 3 and a 2 and a 1 below. And I feel there's also something maybe could be read from taking the outer slopes that are formed by that shape as well between those cards. I'm still contemplating this, and I may try it out at some points, but if you feel that would appeal, then do get in contact. And of course, all donations are gratefully received and they really do help. But ideally, I would like to give you something back in return with the courses rather than just donations, much though they are very much appreciated. And from the bottom of my heart, a big thank you to those that have recently donated and in the past as well. I think that covers everything. So as always, I'm going to say unconditional love to you all. Hopefully that has maybe sparked or inspired you in some way across these two videos. Until next time, unconditional love to you all.